Hello, everyone. Buongiorno a tutti. Vorrei iniziare dicendo qualche parola in italiano, perché I've been learning a little bit. Anche se ho ancora molta strada da fare. Quindi non mettetemi alla prova. Sono Simi, VP Engineering per Prima Assicurazioni. Quando ho iniziato quasi 3 anni fa, non mi aspettavo tutto il calore e il benvenuto che ho ricevuto dal mio team. Oggi sono qui per raccontarvi questa storia, perché è una finestra sul nostro mondo che potete usare per creare il vostro mondo. And now in my natural language, English, I want to turn to, and I just want to say, it's been an incredible privilege to be a part of PyCon Italia this year. For Prima, it has been a part of our journey. A lot of our developers actually take part actively, and in our training and development, this has been one of those things where it has played a huge role in developing people, giving them the opportunity to connect and to learn from each other. We have also had people who have volunteered for this event in the past and actually today as well. So do speak to the people that you see. Some of my team is sitting right at the front as well. So guys, if you want to give a wave to everyone so that you can go and speak to them later as well. So the thing I want to start off with is, just not just this little bit of an introduction of what my job title is, but whenever somebody asks me, even today, what do, I always tell them I'm a software developer. And over the years, I don't do development anymore. However, that's one thing that I always identify as. A developer at heart has always been like that. I think also another thing to remember is that software development in itself, when you're sitting down, working with the teams, building on something, you might be under pressure, you might be trying to build something great, but there is this essence of working together, building things, having fun, pushing boundaries, that is just so incredibly powerful. That I think that that was something that at the heart I really, really enjoyed, and I never wanted to step away from it. And as a part of software development, what I realized that there are many things there that are frustrating us. So this wasn't one of those things where everything runs smoothly. As you know, a lot of developers in different roles who are involved in some sort of software development know this thing that there are a lot of frustrations. So either a lot of things were not in our control, so we couldn't change things, or the people who were making the decisions, they will either just say yes to things and then tell us that we have to build something. And then when we asked them the question of why we were building these things, they would say, well, just because you have to. So they were never able to explain to us why we were doing things. And then sometimes one of the other frustration was, as a developer, you go in and you want to say, well, this isn't possible, or something like that, or you want permission to do something. And then the answer sometimes is no. And the reason is never described again to you why something you cannot do. And this frustration comes over and over. And so you're stretched in all directions. You're asked to work in sort of like this competitive deadline-based environment. And you are not really given the full context of it. And I think that I saw this in several industries happening over and over again. And as a developer, it used to really, really frustrate me. And I thought, what can we do? And this is one of the things I the solution is one of us needs to make the decisions. So the point is, a lot of the times, as people grow up and up in the hierarchy, they forget who they were, their roots of that software development, the core of the teams that they were building. And they just become these people who are so disconnected from the pains and the daily struggle or daily life of a software developer that they don't care about it. And I wanted to do it differently. And so I decided to step up and say, okay, I'll try this leadership role. And so I started doing my first role as a team lead. And honestly, I hated every minute of it. Because I couldn't sit down with my team anymore because I was deciding their salaries. They didn't take me as their team member anymore. There was a distance between us and the people I would joke around with, I will just have fun with. They weren't a team anymore. They were afraid of me a little bit. And so that made me feel very lonely. But I thought that, is it worth the fight? And I remember that I really wanted to look after my teams. So the first team I got, I had 3 developers in there, and I was the team lead. And so I remember I asked them if they were okay so much that they came back and complained about the fact that I asked them if they're okay too many times. So they said, you have to stop asking us if we are okay. And I said, but I want you to be okay. And they said, well, you know, the thing is, you have to let us come to you sometimes. And so I thought, okay, I'll step back a little bit instead of asking them all the time, are you okay? Are you okay? And I think that kind of like told me, and I did not know how to lead a team. So I thought, okay, what do I do? Maybe I could see some team leads that are out there that I had seen in other companies. Maybe I could follow them. Maybe I could do something like that. And I tried to copy them and couldn't really work because the way they led teams was very different to the way I wanted to. And I ended up in a place that was just inauthentic. It wasn't real. It wasn't something that I liked. So, but I really, really missed solving problems. So the main part of it that was eating away at me is the fact that I couldn't solve problems anymore. I couldn't design systems anymore. I couldn't sit down and say, look, you know, we're building this. Let's do it together. We didn't have that fun, and I felt that I wasn't a part of it. And then I had this realization. And the realization was that I was standing perhaps in front of the biggest problem that I have ever seen. And when you are looking outwards into a software development team, a lot of the times people use metrics to measure absolutely everything, okay? So your managers or your leaders, everybody in your company will always say, but show us, are you improving productivity? Are you more efficient? Are you delivering more value? And you try to measure it again and again by any metric that is there. And you look inwards and you're like, how are we not improving? And you know, there's this massive demand. You have to be better at it. Your code coverage should be better. Your velocity should be better. Your speed to market should be better. And this narrative was so dominant that all the teams could think about was that. How can we improve? How can we improve that? And then I realized, this whole realization came, which is that most of the things that directly affect how well a team perform cannot be measured. So this was a huge revelation to me, because I realized that when we were measuring all of those things, really the things that were creating an impact to really create a performance change were not being measured. Like, I mean, you cannot measure them, really. And that's the key point. Not only that, there's also another element, which is that you can't tell from outside what is happening. So essentially, let's say there's a team that transforms itself from low performance to high performance, and then there are elements outside of that team. They can't really tell what's happening inside, because it's something that happens within that. So they can only see it from outside, and they can only see after the change has happened. So imagine this team in your head where they were low performing, something happened, okay? Something happened which cannot be measured, and then they changed into high performance. And from outside, people are like, don't know what happened. However, if you are inside that, when you are a part of it, you can feel it, you can live it, and you can even change it. So what I'm going to tell you today should not come to you as a surprise, and that's the goal, because inherently you already know a lot of these things. And this is the whole point. When you are in a transformation from a low performance to a high performance, when you're inside, you can feel what is happening. However, from outside, it's all magic. And this is literally the words that have been said about this. So a lot of the work that I have done with companies, so I've worked with the companies of various sizes, small companies, smaller teams, to 5 to 10 people teams, to bigger companies, let's say SMEs with 30 to 50 engineers. Then you have bigger teams, which are global, thousands of people across the globe. And at Prima, that we are doing right now, which is, again, about 1,000 people spread in different countries as well. So it's various sizes, various industries. I worked in electronic manufacturing, aerospace, insurance, e-commerce, you name it. So there are several different type of applications for it. And I think that some of the results that you will see at the end of it, so again, it's about, well, what is the change that you were able to create at the end? And some of the things they will be able to see, and we have been able to produce, are 8 to 10 times increase in efficiency and throughput. So this is something that a lot of companies and businesses are very much interested in. And they're like, well, why don't you create that kind of a change? I'm saying that those teams actually do deliver 8 to 10 times more efficiency in terms of efficiency and throughput. And our retention rate across the teams and across industries was 95 to 98%. And that's huge in terms of tech industry, where people like to change their jobs frequently. We also have returners, by the way. I have an example of a guy who's sitting here. I won't take his name. And I remember him leaving, and we always pay a lot of attention in how we say goodbye. So we said, well done to him for all of his contribution. We went out for an amazing meal. We said goodbyes, gave him a hug, and said, come back any day. He did come back after 8 months. He took a pay cut and came back to us. And this is a huge, let's say, pride for us, because we are not just a company that gives you just a salary. We are a lot more than that. And this is where this team culture comes in. And also 90% of the leadership positions, again, I'm talking about across transformations. I'm not just talking about a company. But 90% of the leadership positions are filled in by people within that. So growing the people, progressing them, training and developing them is a huge part of this whole thing. And like I mentioned to you, that this is something that I have tried in a number of different organizations, in different industries. And this is not something that is just applicable in one instant in time. It's completely scalable too. So if somebody says to you, okay, we need to have some sort of a framework that enables you to create that change at pace, transforms the teams, and then really changes the way the business can perceive them and see the results, that's the work that we do. And so I want to introduce you to this luminary framework. And this is a term I came up with. I could have also called it Suleri framework of chaos or whatever. But I think that I wanted to call it the luminary for a reason. And I will explain the reason to you. And like I said to you, my job here today is to make you realize, when you look back at this talk, and then figure out that actually this whole thing is essentially something you already know. And luminary enables you to create that change within the environment that you're in, and hopefully will give you enough to take back and act on so that you can create those kind of changes and have those, start having those conversations where you are. So let's start. This framework has got a few different stages, and the first stage is called narrative shift. And narrative shift is essentially the stories that we tell ourselves and others. If you guys are aware of any literature around stories and why they're important, and I think that, working in software, we know that trying to describe something, and we fall into this trap of trying to describe things in very specific terms, but really, in order to get the essence of something, we need to learn from and about the stories. And the first real transformation piece, where real transformation starts, is the stories that we tell ourselves and others. And what does that mean in reality? So the first thing is understanding who we are. And these are, by the way, you will see a lot of pictures of my team. Some of them are here today. And this is this amazing, most handsome guy sitting right in the front row. and so I think that, but the idea is to not only give you an insight into our team, but also to tell you the work that we do and we have done in order to create these amazing transformations. So understanding ourselves and who we are. And I really, really cannot emphasize enough that any journey of any team starts with individuals, of your understanding of who you are and what is your personality. So some essential work you can do on there is obviously doing reflection on that. But there are a lot of personality tests out there to give you an idea. So I would say the Big Five is probably the most research-backed one. There is a website called Understanding Myself that you can go online and really go in and get your profile. And I would encourage you to do something like this, because I know that we think we understand ourselves, but we don't. A lot of the times we don't know what motivates us. What are our values? If I asked you to do one exercise, go away, write down what are your values and what are your beliefs. What are the real values that motivate you? And understand yourself, because if you really want to embark on this journey, and this is not only for people to understand who are developers in the room, but for companies to understand as well, that in order to have any real transformation, it starts with the individuals that form the team. So essentially, you need to start with all of the inner work that you have to do. And so that starts with recognizing who you are. And how do you deal with conflict, for example? How do you, and what sort of things motivate you? What are your intrinsic motivators? What are some of the things that get you going, and why? What are the values that you will hold and you will defend? What are your boundaries? Do you understand that about yourself? If you don't understand that about yourself, you cannot start that journey of change. The next thing is to understand how we interact with others. So essentially, this is when we step out of ourselves and figure out who is around us. Any team that we work with, even if we're doing individual projects, you will be doing it for someone, okay? So interaction is always going to be there. So you need to understand how you interact. Sometimes what happens is we are having, have you been in a conversation sometimes where everything was going normal and then a person just suddenly reacted and it was just so out of character that you think, what the hell just happened? Why did this person just reacting? Because you probably stepped on a nerve or you triggered them somehow or, and similar things happen to you. And so the idea is to understand how we really relate to others. How do we interact with them? If I had to delegate to someone, how would I do that? What's the language that I use for delegation? So we do a lot of work around that. So we work on conflict models, decision-making models, and delegation models with the teams that we are transforming. And there is just a lot of thought around how we work on those things. And then agreeing on how we want to work on moving forward. Because your understanding of something might be very different from another person's understanding. And what happens in teams, often that are low performing, is that their understanding is not the same. So you might think that done, in terms of a work item, means one thing, and another person might think it's a different thing. But if you want to have that conversation, how will you show up when you are having that conversation? So understanding that and doing the work around how we interact with others is a very important thing. And then telling stories. Don't forget to tell stories to each other. We do this exercise where there is a workshop you can do around the hero's journey, if you look it up somewhere. It's a story, it's a very typical story arc that is followed in lots of novels and lots of stuff. It's like hero goes on a journey, has some sort of a challenge, overcomes the challenge, and then becomes like, it's ultimately, is the hero of the story. So it's kind of like an arc like that goes up and down. And what we did was we sat down and we built stories of our own lives, whatever we wanted to share, about the hero's journey, our own hero's journey. And it's like a fireside chat with people who you work with, and you tell a part of your story to them. Telling stories is very important. And in telling stories, we found out about challenges that people have faced. I did not, for example, realize that one of the really strong and great, let's say, super architect of our team was also a football player, and it was strange to hear the story of his struggle, and then what he overcame and why he resonated with that. And if you see him or you talk to him, you wouldn't think, oh yeah, I think, yeah, you must be a football player. Like, that story never comes up. But in that story is so much of his soul that you know so much of him after knowing that story. So telling stories to each other is very important. And sharing experiences, don't forget. Be silly together. This was a balancing exercise. This is about 3 or 4 weeks ago that the team did, and it was hilarious because they were, in order to balance it perfectly and not topple down into the river, they had to balance it together, and you can see this at a concentration on their faces, just like, don't screw it up. But just to learn to work as a team and stuff, and sharing experiences. But we've done all sorts of things, in terms of making pasta together, which we tried in Bologna, which I miserably failed at, but I tried my best. So all of those things are important. And the second thing, emotional literacy. So that's the second lever of this framework. In emotional literacy, you bring the emotional intelligence into the core of how you work. Now, this is one of the most important things I feel is missing from the work world right now, especially in the software industry. In the tech industry, we like to stay objective, number-oriented, all quantitative. But I want to tell you today that the difference between, again, low performance and exceedingly 10x high performance is not in quantitative. It is actually in qualitative stuff. It is about how you feel, how you do things. And the language and emotional intelligence that you can bring into your work is extremely important there. So one of the things is to normalize the conversations around feelings. And that is a difficult one to achieve, because how do you tell each other how you're feeling? Are you telling your team when you're feeling low, when you're feeling afraid, when you're feeling a bit unsure? Are you able to sit at a table with your team, have dinner together, and then tell them what you're going through, really? And is it normalized in your team? Is it something everybody does? So one of the things is, like, pay attention to this, normalize that conversation. And if there is nobody else that's starting, you can start that conversation. Share a story, tell them, and a lot of other things you can do in order to facilitate that movement. And assuming positive intent, I want to share. This is actually when we made pasta. By the way, I'm not here, but surely there are other people who are much more skilled at making pasta than me. So one thing that has happened to us is that we are required all the time to be super politically correct, all the time. You have to be politically correct. You have to think and overthink about what you say and what you do and how you interact, to the point that a lot of our interactions have become bland. We cannot bring our own personality. And I put Dani he's got this funny expression on his face. He is one of the funniest people that I've met. He often makes politically incorrect jokes in the wrong time, and they are super hilarious. But the thing is, we all know that that's the way we push each other a little bit. We have fun, we have jokes, and never forget that, because I feel like we are being told to censor ourselves so much that our personalities are not upheld. We become some generalized version, an abstract class of some sort, not ourselves. And if you want to turn into real performance, you need to show up fully. You need to show people who you are. And yes, sometimes you will cross the boundary a little bit and you'll be told off, but it's fine. I'd rather live dangerously than not live at all. So that's an important one I'd like to encourage. And poor Fede here, he was very stressed. Fede is often stressed, by the way. So one of the things I want to say is that understand also what is within your control and what isn't. And this is an exercise you can do. You can understand with your team to say, okay, we're struggling on these things. What are some of the things we need to escalate and ask others to fix for us? What are some of the things that we can do ourselves? And a lot of the times you'll find that many things are within your control. And if there are things that are not in your control, that's also okay. But have an exercise of actively understanding what is within your control and not. Just don't assume that you have no control over anything. And don't be afraid to break some of the rules, okay? Sometimes break the rules and figure out whether you actually had control. And I know this is probably the politically incorrect, not the right thing to say thing, but I would say that please try it. Sometimes try breaking the rule and see what happens. Push the limits. Don't contain yourself. Don't self-censor. And create a language around failure. One of the things you need to understand also is that you need to normalize failing. And I feel that a lot of the times people who become managers, they are the worst ones in this, because they're like, oh, I'm meant to be the one that's got everything right. But I think that it's not just that, it's every team. And what happens when you say, oh, I failed at this? So create a language where you can talk about failure, again, openly. And you can say, okay, this happened, and we learn from it, and we move on. And try and make sure that you have each other's back on it, because this is something you can do to each other. Because I find that a lot of the times in software development, people often don't treat each other with kindness when some failure happens, because it's like, oh, look at this person who failed. So just make sure you're normalizing the conversation around those things as well. And then the third point is about a systemic clarity. And this is about understanding your workflows. So this is some work we do with our teams where we map out different stages of your workflow, and what are the different stages from when the work is first thought of, conceptualized, to all the way to done. And you will be surprised how many people think there are different stages. So everybody sometimes thinks that they do work in the same way, and then you sit down and you put it down really on paper and do this workshop, and you realize everybody's understanding was different. And this is where a lot of the performance gaps come also, because you think testing stage means one thing, another person thinks another, then you keep fighting because they haven't tested it properly, but they thought they had, and this is the kind of stuff you need to get out of the way. So if you get all of those things out of the way, your journey becomes much easier and much simpler. And identifying and removing blockers. always have conversations around what's blocking you. So it might be that it's a small thing, that, some logistical thing, some stuff that you want to work on, some training and development need, whatever it is. Make sure that you are actively and continuously having the conversation around blockers. And transparent decision-making, which means that all of your leaders, and this is, if you are a developer and you are not leading a team and you are an individual contributor, don't stop questioning the decisions that have been made. Regardless of how many times people say, do it because I told you so, you can still go and ask and say, this is not good enough. Give me a better explanation of why we're doing it, what it's going to achieve, what is my role in it. Again, link it back to the stories on what your role is, not just within your team, but within an organization. And don't stop and don't compromise on just hearing nothing in return. And in the end, to tie it all together is evolutionary presence. And the reason why I call it that is because really, once you go through that system, each and every person of that organization, of that team, becomes the change that we are trying to create. So this is not a top-down thing. The change happens from within. And it all depends on how we show up. And I want to tell you a story on this one. And this picture has me in there. It needs presence, bravery, and vulnerability. So I want to tell you a story of a guy called Lorenzo. When I joined Prima the first time, I was warned that this guy was maybe a troublemaker, an underperformer, a person that was a troublemaker. And I remember going in and having my conversation with him, and I told him, what's happening? Tell me. And he took a big, long sigh, and he said to me, I don't know whether I should do it or not, but I am going to choose and tell you the truth. And I said, okay, let's go with that. And he said, this is happening. These things are not working. This is something that is troubling us. These are the blockers, blah, 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 blah. And he went on, and I kept listening and writing and listening and writing. And I thought in that moment how brave he had been, because I was this new person who came into the company several levels above him and was asking him a question because he was a troublemaker, so I went to him straight away. He was the first person I had the meeting with, and he told me the truth. He chose to tell me the truth. This person today is my right-hand man. He's not only involved himself, but the teams around him. He leads global teams in Spain, Italy, and the UK for us. Several teams report to him, but also he's an example of vulnerability, honesty, and truth, and what happens when you really show up. The information he gave me became the key to my success in Prima and the key to unlocking transformation that we wanted to achieve. We turned teams around, we turned the culture around, and it started with one conversation. So never ever think that you do not have the agency, you do not have the influence to change things in your whole entire organization. Today, the teams we built together, and he has a huge role to play in the teams that we built together, are taken as an example of engineering teams within Prima and outside. And this picture is a huge thing for me. It means so much to me. I'm actually getting quite emotional looking at it, because we went on an offsite, and I know that, when you have a new boss, you don't know how she's going to be or he's going to be like, and we were just eating together outside under a beautiful tree in Milan, and it was just like a stunning place. And we were all taking pictures, and he came over and he gave me a hug, and we took this picture. And he really surprised me, because I didn't know that he even liked me at that point. And so for me, it was a testament that change was happening within him, because he saw something that I heard him, and I acted on all of the things that he told me. But I appreciated the vulnerability and bravery he'd shown, and he still shows it today. He's a true luminary, and that's what the whole framework is all about. That's what I'm talking about. The luminary framework is actually about each and every person. And what makes a luminary? You shift the tone and energy by how you show up. You take responsibility for your impact, not just your output. And you light the way for others to become braver, clearer, and more whole. And that's a true luminary and the central focal point of this framework that I'm talking about today. And the secret sauce of turning low performance to high performance is and has always been you. You, one person sitting in one team, choosing to be vulnerable, to be brave, to speak the truth. You can make the difference. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. And if you want to ask me, where do you start? I'll say, start by looking at where you are. So I've been having some really great conversations with folks at Human-Centered Engineering. And it's a huge QR code for their free survey you can try. Go ahead and try. It has 3 lenses. One thing is for your individual lens, one thing is team lens, and one thing is organization lens. Essentially, they look at 3 things from the lens of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And then figure out, it will tell you whereabouts you are individually. And then you might get an idea of, okay, if I want to start, maybe this is my weakest area, or this is, as a team, our weakest area, let's start there. And then you start the conversation and you start. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Seemin. It was a terrific presentation. Thank you very much. We have some questions, so I'm going to ask you, and starting from the top. The first one is, you showed a slide about increase in efficiency and performance. It's sometimes hard to agree on what these terms actually mean. I'm curious, how are you measuring it?
Okay, so the efficiency is how much work we got done. So it's essentially your velocity. It's linked to how much work you get done in a particular amount of time. And throughput was, what is the complexity of the work that you were doing? So how much complex work was going through. So in terms of how many things and how complex the work was. And in terms of metrics, one of the things I would say is that you also need to agree on a definition before you start measuring, because otherwise you're like, okay, somebody thinks that means this, and we think it means that. One of the things I would say is that when we measured this was measured over a year's worth of performance, so it's like from 1 year to another, and it was done over a massive global company. I can't actually mention their name, but if you go on to my LinkedIn, you'll see which company I'm talking about. But it's over there, and I think that what we think, what happened essentially, that they used to work on large initiatives, so the nature of work didn't change, the team didn't change, the skill set, obviously the transformation was happening. The only key factor was that the transformation happened. The rest of the things remained the same. And we observed that keeping everything else even constant, the throughput and efficiency changed.
Thank you. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So next one is, sometimes achieving high performance can lead to burnout due to body pressures. How do you handle that?
So one of the things that, if you remember, I mentioned about normalizing conversations about how you feel. And I think that's where we are constantly taking the temperature of how we are. And also admitting when we are getting too tired or we're not able to perform, and making that conversation very open. So I think that when you create that emotional intelligence and that language very common in your teams, it's very easy to figure out where we are. The thing is, again, we are not measuring or beating the drum of saying, you should be high performance, you should be high performance. High performance is an after effect of what change really is happening. So what I'm actually asking you to do is not focus on high performance at all. focus on yourself and how you are with your team and how you communicate and work, high performance would happen. It will take care of itself. So don't focus on the goal, because if you do it that way, you will end up burnt out because you will think you're chasing this endless goal. But if you instead just focus on improving yourself and your team, high performance would come.
Thank you. Next one. How do you create and maintain a culture that allows the team to be high-performing, particularly when you need to deal with difficult cases that can ruin the culture?
Yes, so one of the things that I don't cover in this presentation, but I have a very strong stance on, is how you deal with toxicity. So one of the things is that I said, we create a language around failures. And you know that some of the times you do have people in the teams who might not be performing on purpose in a certain way, right? We all know, we have experienced those people who just are not motivated. Whatever you do, they're just not aligned. And so that's one type. And I think that in these kind of cultures, because the language around failure, the language around emotional understanding is so common and so understood, so well understood and established, that if people want to have that conversation and they might have some problem at home, you can support them. But imagine a situation when everything you have done and still there is just no inclination, or they don't want to do it, then you have to remove them. And there is no shame about it. And I think that in these cultures, those people are pointed out by their peers very quickly. So it's because everybody's so geared up, they are so excited, they so love working in that team, that if you feel people who are toxic, they stand out so much that it's easy. And then it's your job to remove them. So you have to remove them quickly so your core team doesn't get bothered.
Thank you, Simi. I think we have other 3 questions. How to deal with people who appear not interested in knowing themselves and how they interact with others? So,
I think one of the things is that understanding that you don't want to know anybody is also knowing yourself a little bit to find out, I'm not interested in this. And I think that sometimes it might be that this kind of team is not for you. And that's also okay. You'll find another team that is for you. So it might be that you're one of those people who think, okay, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I want to sit in my room and do my own projects. That's also okay. I mean, there's plenty of work out there, and there will be a team for you. But I feel like in a lot of the organizational cultures where we are obviously we are all working for businesses, hopefully, or charities. But the thing is that even when we are working on these things, we're working on a team trying to deliver something. So just make sure that if you do have that understanding to say, look, I have no interest in that, then it might not be the right team for you.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just curious now. So if you leave this individual alone, I mean, dealing with this stuff without interacting as you expect, do you think this, in a long-term work relation, does it work, or?
Well, I mean, in some teams,
it comes to an end, like in months.
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends. So I think that for some, if there is like a lot of resistance or something, that team might actually not be for them. So you might have to give them other options to say, okay, there is some work there that you can do. Or sometimes the option might be, this place is not for you. And I don't want people to shy away from this conversation, to say sometimes the teams are not for them. And that's okay to say that as well. We need to all find the place that we have. And what we try to do in our culture is to make sure that we understand each other and ourselves enough to find that place. And if it isn't for us, it also becomes evident very quickly. And if it does, then we choose to stay or leave depending on that. So.
Okay, thank you. Next one. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. I know that asking question is good, but anything too much can be deteriorating. When do you draw the line?
I don't actually draw the line on questions. I'm pretty bad at that, I would say. So if you ask me personally, I would say curiosity is why we are here. So I would say ask questions, give feedback, keep talking, and keep bothering people. And especially if people come back to you and say, and try to shut you up just because you asked a question, just keep asking them even more. I would say push the boundaries there. I don't think that asking the questions too much is a problem. Sometimes people are lost. I think that for us, it's also to identify why they're asking questions. Because not every question is because curiosity. Some people also ask questions just to trigger something. Some people might be wanting to encourage some toxic behavior or something like that. So you also need to analyze as a team. And honestly, this is incredibly, I mean, this is an industry that is surrounded by incredibly smart people. When people are trying to manipulate a situation, you already know that. So what I'm telling you is, you already know how to do these things. You already know how to create this difference. So when people are trying to undermine something you're trying to build, you will know it instantly. And if you know, the question is how you would behave. And my suggestion and recommendation would be to raise it, to raise the voice, to try and have a conversation about that behavior. Don't just sit back and take negative behavior in your teams.
So you can spot the difference in advance. So you can spot
yeah, I think everybody can.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not that kind of person.
Anna still can't. But yeah.
I might need some session with you, but anyway. We have a last question.
Okay.
High performance means something different according to different people. So it's not like a common sense thing. So it's not just code output, for instance.
Yeah.
How do you manage the inequality between people?
Inequality?
Inequality, yeah.
Do you think that there is ever a team that has got equals in it? Have you seen a team of equals? Ever? That's your answer. There is never a team of equals. We are all unequal in different teams doing different things. So as soon as you accept that reality and not try to bash everybody into one mold, you will become better at high performance. And yes, the other point about high performance was, how do you actually measure it and how do you define it? I would say that a lot of the times it's your ability to adapt to change. That could be one indication, easy enough for you to understand. So it could be that the requirement of something changed, or you have to deliver something more, you have to change the speed or something like that. There are many ways you can measure it. But to me, it is adaptability. It's the connection between people. And you go into a room, and it might be your virtual room, or nowadays, I mean, we are all remote first. So this we are able to maintain even working remotely. You don't have to put people physically in a room in order to feel that. But really, you feel the energy in that room as well. So that's a huge measure for me. Like I said to you in the beginning of the presentation, a lot of those things will not be measurable, but you will be able to feel them because they will naturally come to you.
Thank you. I have Since we have still some time, and I wanna ask you one question, and then I have some announcements for you folks. So the question is, you are a VP of engineering, right? So how can you deal with managing the team and then also do the tech stuff? It's a 50-50 thing. It's like 20, 70, 80, 730. I mean, what's the balance of that?
I think that the answer to that is I hire super smart people and they tell me what to do. And that's always been the way to do it. But I think that, yes, in a way, in a VP role, you're often in part of both conversations, right? Cultural conversations and tech conversations. However, my focus has always been to build an incredibly strong team around me. So a lot of the times the conversations I'm having are based on proposals that are already thought through, and then we can go over them. But I don't know whether there is a 50-50. I don't know whether there is a strong percentage split. Sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it's 50-50. It matters on what you're working on. So essentially, in a leadership position, you need to be able to morph into different roles depending on what your team needs in that time. I also have a reputation of turning into a bulldozer if my team tells me something's blocking their way. And I will clear out that. So if you want to talk to them, you can ask. They will tell you that that happens. But the thing is that this is also another thing you have to do, right? You have to be ready to act whenever your team needs you, in whatever capacity, if you are considering a leadership position.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Steve.
Yeah, I just wondered, do you have any team members who admitted suffering from imposter syndrome? And if so, how have you been able to help them?
So imposter syndrome is something like, people say a lot of women suffer from it, but I think women and men both suffer from it. The way we have approached imposter syndrome is we've told people, and we work with them like through workshops and stories. A lot of the times this thing comes up. And actually, one of the common themes in all of our stories when we did the hero's journey was the imposter syndrome, because you go on a journey, and then when you go to end up in a new place, you think you're an imposter, and you are. To begin with, you're just trying to figure out your way. But I think the way we have normalized the conversation around it is by relating to each other that we are all feeling that at some point, because something is always new to us. Tech industry changes all the time. That means that we are new to things all the time. That means we will be an imposter, feeling nervous, which I was feeling like speaking Italian in front of Italians. It's like shivering inside. But the thing is, like, you still do it. You are an imposter, but you show up. That's the most important thing. As long as you show up, we're there to cheer you on, and that's what we do.
Okay, I think we're done. Thank you again. Thank you, Seemin.